Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm ANNISA INDAH PARAWANGSA from PBI 1 class, English Education Study Program, Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teaching Science of Islamic University Raden Fatah Palembang. So today I would like to read about the literal reading book, chapter 9 and chapter 10. Okay, we started from the chapter 9. Love Japanese Style. When Mr. Yoji Morita married Miss Tamiko Minemura last year, his father compared the couple's new life together to a railroad train on a long unknown track. There may be curves and dark tunnels ahead, he told them, but we wish you a safe journey. The first year of that journey together has provided a variety of personal discoveries about everything from dirty laundry to family finance for the newlyweds. But overall, the young couple, who are typical of millions of Japanese, say their semi-arranged marriage is going well, and they feel a certain closeness slowly developing between them. They call it love. I feel so relaxed when I get home with him, said the 27-year-old Mrs. Morita, who has kept her job as a bank teller. She does such nice things, said her husband, a 35-year-old television film editor. The other day, when I was sick in bed, she gave up a trip to the country with her friends to stay home and care for me. During each of their 6 work days a week, they talk by phone and almost always meet each evening to make the one-hour train ride home together. In the streets, they hold hands. In restaurants, they sometimes playfully touch each other. These are subtle but significant changes in the growth of a Japanese marriage relationship, where open signs of affection haven't been common. It is quite different from the day when they met at an arranged tea after their fathers, old friends from work, exchanged photographs and suggested the possibility of a marriage between their 2 children. The 2 young people who could have said no to the idea didn't even get to speak at first. 10 days after this meeting, Mr. Morita phoned Miss Minimura to propose. She decided almost immediately but waited 3 days to answer. I will make you happy, Mr. Morita promised. Then, in October, Japan's most popular marriage month, the 2 families will join in a wedding and reception that costs about $13,600. It was planned to be the most important day in their lives. The 2 newlyweds, who had never kissed each other that day, spent their wedding night on the 19th floor of a nearby hotel. Then they left for a quiet southern vacation resort on a short honeymoon. They live in the 2 upstairs rooms of the home of Mr. Morita's parents. There they usually eat breakfast and dinner with the other couple and frequently watch an hour of television together. The mother-in-law cooks during the week and the new bride cooks on Sundays. In exchange, the young couple pays $280 of their combined income for food and housing costs. They have $240 a month for the coffee shop that Mr. Morita would like to open and for the 3 children they plan to have. When they have children, the bank may force Mrs. Morita to quit, or she may choose to. I won't tell her what to do, said Mr. Morita. If she wants to quit, okay. If she wants to work, okay. Politically, they have separate views, but we never fight, Mrs. Morita said. We don't hit each other like some couples. If a quarrel is heating up, then we both just keep quiet and let it blow over. Besides, he often apologized to me, and that solves the problem. But Mr. Morita has, in his first 13 months of marriage, sometimes been annoyed by what he regards as nagging. Typically, this happens when he leaves socks or shirts scattered about. This carelessness, combined with all the housework after a day's work at the bank, was the major unexpected fact of married life for Mrs. Morita. I have to tell him to pick up, she said. There are those standard private moments, often at work, when, for instance, Mrs. Morita realized suddenly that every weekend when his wife cooks a meal, it contains his favorite potatoes. Or Mrs. Morita will think about the sweater she is knitting for her husband, not because I have to, but because I want to. Or perhaps she will admire one more time the ring that her husband had a jeweler secretly design and make for her recently. I don't know why I did it. Mr. Morita insists it was for no reason. Last year, on her wedding day, when she was a bride of only a few minutes, Mrs. Morita said, "I think that our love will start to grow from this moment on." The other evening, after 13 months of marriage, she was reminded of that. "I remember," she said, "it's growing." So that's all about the chapter 9. Then we go next to the chapter 10. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Is there a safe way to drink? I have devoted most of my professional life to the problems of alcohol and its abuse, most recently as director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. So I've spent much of my time trumpeting the fact that alcohol is a drug and that alcohol abuse is the most serious drug problem this nation faces. Nonetheless, I believe firmly that alcohol can do more good than harm, for there is a safe way to drink. Pharmacologically, alcohol is an anesthetic, not a stimulant. In moderate amounts, it appears to stimulate because it inhibits those brain centers which restrict less civilized outbursts, as well as those which make us aware of exhaustion. Then we feel sickly, abler, and emotional freer. But with increasing doses, alcohol puts to sleep the brain centers which affect judgment, knowledge, and social controls. Sufficient dosage can put us to sleep for keeps by anesthetizing those centers which control breathing and heartbeat. Responsible people, therefore, must choose rather carefully the time, place, and circumstance of drinking. Obviously, if you are to engage in complex mental or physical activities, riding, driving, business, it is scarcely appropriate to be under the influence of an anesthetic drug. On the other hand, if you're going to be sharing a meal or some other human interchange in a relaxed way, alcohol can be a rewarding adjunct to the experience, a true servant of man. An essential point is that there is a known safe level of drinking. In preparing the second report to the Congress on Alcohol and Health, we found that researchers all over the world were independently using the same level to define safe or moderate drinking. 1.5 ounces of pure alcohol per day, the equivalent of 3 1-ounce drinks of 100 proof whiskey, which is 50% alcohol, 4 8-ounce glasses of beer, or half a bottle of wine. This limit, of course, is only a statistical average. For some people, even 1 drop of alcohol is too much, nor do our findings permit saving up 1 day's ration in order to drink more the next day. At no time should any individual wishing to remain within the safe limits consume more than 1.5 ounces of pure alcohol in a single day. Studies show that the driver who has consumed an amount of alcohol within this limit is no more likely to have an automobile accident than the driver who doesn't take any alcohol. But beyond this limit, when the blood alcohol level, the concentration of alcohol in the blood, begins to creep over the 0.5% sober level, the risk of a traffic accident jumps enormously. By the time the blood alcohol level reaches 0.2%, the level of mass drunk drivers who are arrested, the risk of an accident is 100 times that of the non-drinking driver. The manner of drinking is also crucial. One should always sip slowly. Alcohol is a highly unusual foodstuff in that at least 20% of it is absorbed directly from the stomach into the bloodstream without going through any digestive process. Therefore, gulping alcohol produces a sudden, marked rise in the alcohol level in the blood and hence in the brain. Once alcohol is in the bloodstream, nothing, with the exception of a kidney dialysis machines, can clear it from the blood more quickly than the body's unsteady metabolic rate of 3/4 of an ounce of pure alcohol per hour. Another rule of safe drinking is that food in the stomach, preferably protein or fatty products, effectively delays alcohol's invasion of our system. Food covers the stomach wall, making capillaries less accessible. It is also sponges up the alcohol and carries it gradually through the digestive process, slowing absorption and allowing the metabolism and brain to adapt. So, as an experienced drinker knows, the same dose taken with food in the stomach will provide a more pleasant outcome than alcohol on an empty stomach. A number of other factors also influence our response to a drink. It's best not to take alcohol when physically or emotionally upset, lonely, or in need of solace. It is true that alcohol's anesthetic effect will dull the pain of loneliness, but alcohol is not substitute for another person. In other words, do not drink alone. It's also best to drink in a relaxed setting. If I had to come up with an unhealthy drinking situation, I would have created the American cocktail party, standing around uncomfortably in a crush of people, most of whom one doesn't know. One tends to gulp the first drink. People like to think that the alcohol at the cocktail parties makes it easier to get acquainted, and they cite the fact that strangers frequently pour out intimate details of their lives. In my judgment, a stranger sharing intimacies so freely is not relating to you, he is relating to himself. A medical college once tested this at a cocktail party when a woman was pouring out her heart to him. "I've just murdered my grandmother," he said. The woman smiled sweetly, said, "Isn't that nice?" and babbled on. Regardless of where and how you drink, what you expect from alcohol is what you get. As with almost all drugs, expectation is strongly related to outcome. If you are part of a group that wants to act drunk even with small doses, you'll feel drunk. It's best, then, to drink with people who set expectations that are socially useful and not destructive. Too many Americans, preoccupied with drinking, fail in this regard. We spend a good deal of time thinking about drinking or talking about it. Our liquor advertisements imply that alcohol is proof of sophistication and word lines. Or else it's funny. Just think about how we laugh when a comedian acts drunk. Thinking something is funny is a society way of giving it social sanction. It is also a sign of discomfort, for jokes are a safe way to ventilate deeper worries. Study after study has shown that Americans are uncomfortable, ambivalent, almost guilt-ridden about their use of alcohol. Why is this country so uptight about drinking? In my opinion, one major reason is that our society places a great deal of stock in order and control. And being overdosed with a drug drunk means being out of control. When we see someone who has lost control, it threatens our sense of control. Alcoholism is threatening because so many of us use alcohol. When we see an alcoholic, we are afraid that we could become alcoholics also. If our culture were more open and less guilty about alcohol, I think we could do more for people with alcohol problems. We might also do more for our children. Surveys completed in 1975 show that children in this country between the age of 12 and 17 are already manifesting severe alcohol abuse. In fact, 5% of these kids get drunk at least once a week. What can parents do? For one thing, they can alter the use of alcohol in the home. I contend that we teach our children about alcohol very early. Toddlers notice that when mommy and daddy drink this particular liquid, they behave differently. The children can't miss the fact that it's something special, especially when we tell them they can't have it because it's not good for you. I see no harm in becoming more relaxed about alcohol in the home, even giving your child a taste if you are drinking and he wants it. Why not? Other cultures do. In a matter of fact way, Chinese, Lebanese, Spanish, Jewish, and Italian people do not think there is anything special about giving alcohol to their young. Nobody makes a fuss about it, and these cultures use alcohol without appreciable problems. Indeed, always to focus on alcohol in the context of alcoholism is, I think, to miss the point. If you are preoccupied with alcohol, if you or others in your environment are discomfited by this preoccupation, if alcohol interferes with your ability to function in other necessary ways, then you have an alcohol problem. Our country is very concerned these days with safety and health. We have to remind ourselves that anything that affects human beings has a potential for harm. In so great a quantity, even oxygen and water, those essential of life, can harm or kill. So life is a risk, and I suspect the only sure way to be safe from disease and dying is to be dead. But there are safe limits that people can use in making their decision about risk taking, such as choosing to drink or not to drink, or how much to drink. We ought to share with young and old alike the best available knowledge on such subjects, and then let each individual make up his or her own mind.